Hi, everybody. I'm not sure if you remember, but I used to do weekly transits and tell you about the gene key or the gate that was in the sun. And I felt like I didn't have that much engagement on those posts. And actually, if I tell something about my own life or experience, that is more engaging. And at the same time, it's something with the transits that I find so special, and that since I started to follow those transits, I can really feel in my life what gene key we're in. I can feel the energy before we go into it. I can feel it as we move out. I can feel the lines. So there is something very, very magical by actually tuning into the transits, and with the transits then especially where the sun is passing by. So this week we've been in Gene Key 40, and we're going into Gene Key 64 tonight or tomorrow, and really actually observe that energy in yourself and around you. And I feel like this is also such a good way into the art of contemplation, because if we have one key per every 6 days that we tune into, that also allows us to kind of tap into that observation, to that art of contemplation. So I want to continue doing those transits, and maybe I'll play with the format. I'll do it shorter, maybe just like Richard says, like condense it to 3 minutes. But it's really an invitation for us to tune into the transits, and like always, just to look at the sun and know that where the sun is, opposite to that, we have the earth. So that's the same thing as in your activation sequence. When if you have Gene Key 40 as life's work, then your evolution is 37. So this pair is so interesting. And if you look at how the hexagram is built up and you look at the 6 lines, you're going to see that they're mirror opposites. So wherever the 40 has a yang line, a full line, you're going to see that the 37 has a yin line, a broken line. So there's really a magic geometry between those 2 gene keys, and in both the shadow patterns, of course, and the gift patterns and the cities. So there is something with it to actually also being able to start recognizing the programming partners and know how they work together, both in the lower frequencies and the higher frequencies. So I guess that we could say something about Gene Key 40 this week, and it goes from exhaustion to resolve to divine will. And in the body graph, we have it's the channel with the 37 that goes from the ego to the emotional center, and it's a very tribal channel. It has to do with community. It has to do with the kind of the border, like in a family or in a tribe, like everybody adds something, and often there is like this kind of trade, like I do this and you do this for me, and many times before, and we look, there has been the inequality that we can see in the 37th gene key about the feminine and the masculine in imbalance, and the roles and the injustices, where maybe one part is taken advantage of, one part is more dominant, and all these kinds of dynamics that can play out in relationship when we live closely. And to see how we are starting to, finding solutions to that, or finding a way to be more equal, to not discern, but to not judge whether we are, male or female, black or white, skinny or not skinny, and to start to be more inclusive, and to really see that there is a divine will in those roles that can be taken in the tribe. That there is also like the synarchy that we can see in the 44th gene key, that everybody has its right place in the synarchy, and it doesn't have to be a hierarchy, and it doesn't have to be a heterarchy. It doesn't have to be flat. It doesn't have to be like somebody on the top and the people on the bottom. It doesn't have to be a pyramid either in that sense. But it's really like when we are people coming together, and then we care, like that kind of tribal coming together, then there are natural formings where there is a tenderness in that, in recognizing other people for their gifts and for what they can add. There's a beautiful tenderness in that, and to see that we all have gifts. And when everybody's on the right place, then we are, the whole thing of the shadow frequencies with the exhaustion and the weakness is kind of going out of the window, because when you work in something that you're good at, that you're meant to do, then we have the whole, the 70% of people are generators, and by doing that we regenerate our energy. We're putting our energy out to something, and we get something back. We get recognition, there's value in what we do, and then it creates energy in us. And the same thing with a weakness. Like when we are put to do things that we're not strong in, then of course that creates judgment, and that creates also weakness, like we feeling like we're weak. So you can see this whole pattern of how the 37 and the 40 work in the shadow frequency, and what is the potential that we are opening up to. And yeah, I guess that's the short version of how these two gene keys work together. And another thing that's just interesting is that they are kind of a common pairing, because when we look in the body graph, they form a channel between the ego and the emotion center, and at the same time they're programming partners. So you can see that they are powerful. They are going to come up both as harmonics in a channel and programming partners, and that is something to think about. And that's also why I like to bring in both the gene keys and human design, and kind of seeing where are, in what circuitry. Is it collective? Is it individual? Is it tribal? Like where does these patterns show up? These shadow patterns, gift patterns, and cities. So yeah, thank you.